I was already halfway out the door when I heard the scream. A loud, high-pitched shriek, followed by a sharp hiss. Then came the unmistakable sound of boiling water bursting through metal. A few cups smashed. Someone yelled, "Fire!" Then chaos. I turned back. The cafe was filled with smoke. Jason, Mark's smug, freshly hired nephew, was standing behind the counter, mouth wide open, soaked from the waist down. The espresso machine was spraying hot water like a busted fire hydrant. Staff scattered. A customer slipped on the floor. Someone pulled the fire alarm. And I just stood there. Watching. Silent. For a moment, Jason caught my eye. His face, twisted in panic. His hands flailed helplessly, trying to stop the machine. He mouthed something. Maybe, "Help me." I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just smiled. Then I walked away. Right out the door. Into the sunlight. Because none of that was an accident. And if you think that was petty, you haven't heard the beginning. It started simple. Too simple. I had just finished wiping down the last table at Grindhouse Cafe. It was a Sunday night, the kind of slow shift where the clock moves like honey dripping down cold glass. Jazz played softly in the background. The lights were dim. I was closing up alone, like I usually did, because nobody else cared enough to stay late. I wasn't the owner. But I may as well have been. I was the one who opened the shop at 6 every morning, 7 days a week. I did the payroll. I handled inventory. I trained every barista, every cashier, every wide-eyed teenager who walked in thinking coffee was just pushing buttons. It wasn't. Coffee was precision. Pressure. Timing. It was about mood. Ambience. Speed. I lived for this place. And Mark, the actual owner, he lived in Aruba. Not literally. But close enough. He checked in maybe once a week. Usually to ask why oat milk costs more than almond milk. Or to tell me to cut someone's hours to save a few bucks. I kept it running. I made it grow. I even fixed the POS system with a YouTube video and a screwdriver once. So when Mark walked in that Monday morning with him, that's when everything started to unravel. Jason. 22 years old. Fresh buzzcut. Designer sneakers. Shirt 2 sizes too small to show off arms that looked like they were grown in a lab. Walked in like he owned the place. He didn't even say hi. Didn't shake my hand. He just said, "So this is the coffee dump." I blinked. Mark laughed. I didn't. Jason was officially there to learn the family business. Unofficially, he was there to make my life hell. By Wednesday, he'd taken over the schedule. By Friday, he moved my office chair into the hallway. "Need space for vision boards," he said with a wink. By the next week, half the staff hated him. But none of them said anything. They needed the job. And I told myself to breathe. To be patient. To let it blow over. I didn't know it yet. But this was just the beginning. The calm. Right before the grind. 3 days after Jason showed up, we lost our first regular. Not to a bad drink. Not to bad service. To him. Her name was Mrs. Patel. She came in every weekday morning at exactly 7:12. Always ordered the same thing. Half-sweet vanilla latte, extra hot. Sat by the window. Read the paper. Left a $5 tip in the jar, even when she didn't have to. Jason was behind the register that morning. He told her we don't take cash. She said she didn't have a card. He rolled his eyes and muttered, "Then maybe get with the times." I wasn't there when it happened. But I came in to find her empty seat and her untouched newspaper. She never came back. That's when I realized something. Jason wasn't just annoying. He was rotting the core of the place. Over the next week, it got worse. He added a motivational board in the back room. A literal whiteboard where he wrote things like, "Smile equals sales. Dead weight sinks boats. If you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late." The staff started calling it the wall of passive aggression. Then came the hour cuts. Lena, who worked nights to pay for nursing school, got cut to 2 shifts a week. Marco, our best latte artist, got bumped to weekends only. And me? Mark called me into his office. Didn't even sit down. Just said, "We need to free up some hours for Jason's hands-on learning. You'll be part-time starting next week." I just stood there. Staring. Not speaking. I could hear the hum of the fridge behind me. The tick of the clock on the wall. A car alarm outside. The world felt still. Then Mark patted my shoulder, like he was doing me a favor, and said, "You've earned a break." That night, I sat in my apartment, lights off, phone buzzing with shift changes and group chat complaints. I stared at my hands. They were shaking. Not from fear. From anger. From betrayal. From something colder. Something calculating. That's when a thought entered my head. Soft. Quiet. But deadly. What if? I just took it all. I didn't act right away. No, see, revenge isn't fast food. It's slow roasted. I went back to work. Smiled. Nodded. Took my chopped hours and ran the floor like I still owned it. Jason strutted around like a rooster in a henhouse. Changed our playlist to EDM. Took selfies behind the counter. Told customers we were reinventing the coffee experience. One afternoon, I found him adjusting the grinder settings on our espresso machine. I said, "Hey, be careful, that thing's dialed in pretty tight." He scoffed. I read a Reddit thread. "This is the sweet spot. Trust me, I know flavor profiles." The next 20 drinks came out bitter as regret. He blamed the beans. But while he was ruining shots, I was planting mine. I started small. I dropped a question into the group chat. If this place burned down tomorrow, who'd miss it? Got 3 typing dots. Then Lena responded. Not me, lol. Marco chimed in. Honestly, only reason I'm still here is because of you. I didn't reply. I let it hang. 2 days later, I met up with Marco after his shift. We walked to a nearby taqueria. Cheap tacos. Plastic chairs. Nobody watching. I asked him, quietly, if I left, would you come with me? He stared at his salsa like it held the answer. Then he said, you serious? I nodded. He said, then yeah. 100%. That was the first domino. I didn't tell anyone else yet. Instead, I started watching Jason more closely. How he talked to staff. How he lied to customers. How he flirted with Ellie, our youngest barista, in ways that made her uncomfortable. And how he logged fake hours into the schedule sheet. He even took a picture of himself at the register and set it as his phone wallpaper. Like this was his empire. But me? I was building something real. In silence. In shadow. And soon. It would rise. The storefront was tiny. Dusty window. Rusted lock. A single dead plant in a cracked pot outside. But when I stepped inside, something clicked. It was quiet. Bare walls. Open floor. No espresso machines. No milk crates. No Jason. Just possibility. The sign on the window said, "For lease." I took a photo. Didn't send it to anyone. Just saved it. That night, I couldn't sleep. My apartment was dark, but my brain was lit up like a stadium. Ideas. Layouts. Names. What color the walls should be. Whether I'd allow Wi-Fi or keep it offline to encourage conversation. I wasn't just dreaming. I was plotting. Next day, I went back to Grindhouse. Jason was yelling at Ellie because her tip jar was too full and made the counter look sloppy. She looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. I didn't say anything. Just clocked in and grabbed a towel. But later, as she was cleaning the milk frother, I whispered. "If I opened my own place, you'd be safe there." She looked at me. Eyes glassy. Silent. Then she nodded. Small. But sure. 2. I had 2. At lunch, I met Marco again. He brought Lena this time. We sat in the back corner of an empty Vietnamese place, and I laid out the bones of it. Not hype. Not dreams. Blueprint. Real wages. No schedule bait and switch. Better beans. Profit sharing if we survived the first year. They listened. Didn't speak much. Just nodded. When the check came, Lena slid it over and said, "We're in. 3. 4. More than halfway to a crew. But revenge? It's not just about winning. It's about the moment they realize they lost. So I had to play it smart. Keep smiling. Keep grinding. Meanwhile, I visited that storefront again. Met the landlord. He was a gruff old man in a flannel shirt who asked one question. "You know what you're doing?" I looked him dead in the eye and said, "More than the guy I'm about to destroy." He handed me the key. Jason wasn't dumb. He was arrogant. Loud. Entitled. But not dumb. So when he started noticing the shift in energy, the sudden quiet in the break room, the looks people gave each other when he walked in, he did what insecure men always do. He pushed harder. First came the clipboard. A real one. With employee performance notes. Left in the open. Like bait. He never said he was watching us. But every time someone was late, even by 1 minute, a note appeared. Marco needs to work on consistency. Ellie lacks urgency. Lena shows signs of disinterest. And mine. Too comfortable. I almost laughed. Almost. Next came the surprise team meeting. He gathered everyone in the back room. No warning. No snacks. Just a weird fake smile and a speech. "You know, this place is changing," he said, pacing like a TED Talk dropout. "We're building a culture of excellence. Not mediocrity. Not nostalgia. Excellence." No one clapped. He kept going. "I know some of you are resistant to growth. That's fine. But understand this, I'm here for results. And anyone not pulling their weight, will be replaced." Then he looked at me. Dead in the eye. Held it. Like a challenge. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I just tilted my head slightly. Smiled. That night, I met Ellie outside after closing. We sat on the curb, sharing a lukewarm convenience store mocha, and she told me what Jason had said to her earlier. He said I had barista energy, and that it was cute. Then he winked. My hands clenched around the cup. I stared at the parking lot. Silent. "Do I still have a place at your shop?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. I looked at her and said, "You'll have a key." She nodded. No hesitation. 5. But Jason wasn't done. The next morning, I walked in and found the register locked. Jason stood behind it, arms crossed. "New policy," he said. "Only management touches the till." I raised an eyebrow. "Since when?" "Since I started noticing money going missing." A lie. But a strategic one. He wanted to rattle me. To see if I'd crack. I didn't. I just grabbed a towel and said, "Cool. I'll just clean the toilets then." He smirked. Like he'd won. But behind that smirk was fear. I could see it now. Jason didn't know what was happening. But he knew it was coming. It happened on a Wednesday. Mid-shift. Cloudy skies. No music playing. Half the lights in the cafe were off. Jason said ambience, but it felt more like a funeral. Marco was behind the bar. I was restocking milk crates. Jason. He was in the office. Door locked. Laptop open. That was already suspicious. He never locked the door. He liked being watched. But today, he was quiet. I watched through the tiny window in the door. He wasn't typing. Just staring at his screen. Face pale. Jaw tight. Then he leaned back and said something to himself. Mouth moved. No sound. Just one word. But I read lips. And the word was, sh*t. An hour later, Ellie came to me during her 10-minute break. Her hands were shaking. She held out her phone and said, "Don't freak out." She'd found a link on a barista forum. Someone had anonymously posted a spreadsheet. It listed names, emails, phone numbers of half our staff. Next to each, private notes. Jason's notes. Real ones. Under Marco's name. Talks too much. Probably high. Under Lena's. Single mom. Will tolerate anything. Weak spot. Under Ellie's. Pretty, young. Friendly. Easy to charm. My name. Just one word. Problem. I took the phone. Scrolled in silence. No logo. No signature. But the tone was unmistakable. Jason had built a list, a twisted playbook, and someone had leaked it. But who? And more importantly, why? I looked at Ellie. "Where did you find this?" She hesitated. Then said, "It was sent to me. From an anonymous number. Just, dropped into my inbox." My gut went cold. This wasn't just a leak. This was a move. Someone out there had drawn blood. And Jason? He was bleeding. That night, I didn't go home. I walked to the new shop. Empty. Dark. But mine. I stood in the middle of the floor, stared at the blank walls, and whispered, almost. Then I pulled out my phone and sent a message to Marco. Just 2 words. It's time. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a second. Instead, I mapped the entire operation in my head. Staff rotations. Supply chains. Opening date. Marketing hooks. Social media plan. Menu strategy. All while staring at the ceiling. Because the second that spreadsheet leaked, the clock started ticking. Jason had enemies now. And I wasn't the only one sharpening a blade. The next morning, the cafe felt different. Quiet, but not peaceful. The way the ocean goes still right before a tsunami. Marco came in with his apron half on, no eye contact. Ellie barely spoke. Lena didn't show up at all. Jason? He was late. 20 minutes. Then he stumbled in with sunglasses and a Starbucks cup. A Starbucks cup. In Grindhouse. That was the first nail. Around 10 a.m., a customer asked for the Wi-Fi password. Jason responded without even looking up, "Buy something first." The man raised his coffee and said, "I did." Jason shrugged. The guy left. No refund. No apology. Another one gone. Another little cut. During the lull, I asked Marco to meet me out back for a smoke. Neither of us smoked. We stood by the dumpsters. Low voices. I said, "Opening is in 10 days. You still in?" Marco looked over his shoulder. Nodded. "I've got Lena. Ellie's shaken, but she's not staying here. Not after the list." I nodded slowly. "We leave on a Sunday." Quietly. "Last shift. No drama." Marco smiled. "A rare thing. Can I trash the playlist on the way out?" I smirked. "Do it loud." Back inside, Jason was hunched over his laptop. I could see sweat on the back of his neck. The list had rattled him. He didn't know who'd leaked it. Didn't know who he could trust. And that? That was the beauty. He thought I was his biggest problem. He had no idea the walls were closing in from every side. At closing, I stayed behind, offered to do inventory. Jason left early, saying he had a strategy call. The second he was gone, I pulled the master key. Opened the manager cabinet. Took a flash drive. I didn't steal anything. I just copied. Payroll data. Schedules. Vendor contacts. The entire supplier list. It was mine. All of it. Not theft. Just reclamation. As I locked up, I looked around one last time. The tables. The espresso machine. The tip jars. And I whispered to the air. "Next time you see me, I'll be your competition." The first strike came on a Monday. Jason walked in like nothing had happened, fake confidence turned up to 11. Collared shirt. Fresh haircut. Sunglasses on top of his head. But I could see it in his eyes. He was scared. And scared men. They don't think. They react. By noon, 3 staff had been pulled into one-on-one reviews in the office. Ellie came out pale. Marco came out furious. Then Jason looked at me and said, "You're up." I walked in. Shut the door behind me. He didn't look up from his laptop. Just said, "You planning something?" I raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" He leaned back, staring. "Staff are acting weird. Customers are noticing. And that spreadsheet? Not mine." I stayed quiet. Let the silence press in. He broke it. "If you're trying to turn people against me," he said, voice dropping, "it won't work. Mark backs me. Always has." Then he smiled. A snake smile. "Play nice, or I'll make sure you don't get hired anywhere in this city." I almost laughed. But I didn't. I just nodded slowly. Got up. Paused at the door. And said, "You might want to check the espresso machine before you threaten people." Then I walked out. Left him stewing. Not because of what I said. But because I hadn't said more. 2 hours later. Boom. Jason lost it. He came flying out of the back, red-faced, waving his phone. "You think this is funny?" he barked. "You think this is a game?" Everyone froze. Customers stared. He stormed over to Ellie, accusing her of stealing tips. Pointed at Marco, called him a lazy burnout. Then he looked at me. Eyes wild. "I know what you're doing." I tilted my head. Calm. Said nothing. That made it worse. Mark showed up the next day. First time in weeks. He pulled me aside, real low voice. Is Jason okay? He asked. I shrugged. You hired him. Mark sighed. Rubbed his forehead. Said, just, hang in a bit longer, alright? I nodded. But inside? I was laughing. Because in exactly 5 days, he wouldn't have a staff left to run. We chose Sunday for a reason. It was the slowest day. Fewer eyes. Fewer questions. More control. But when I walked in that morning, same apron, same keys, same tight smile, it felt different. The air had weight. Like everyone was holding their breath. Jason was already there. Shirt ironed. Hair slicked. Clipboard in hand. But his eyes? Tired. Paranoid. He greeted no one. Just hovered near the register like a soldier waiting for a landmine. The plan was simple. Lena would call out. Marco would no-show. Ellie would give her notice mid-shift. And I would stay till the end. Let the lights go off behind me. Walk out last. Like a captain abandoning a ship already sunk. At 10:17, Lena texted the group. Headache. Can't make it. Sorry. Jason cursed under his breath, hands on his hips. By noon, Marco was still a ghost. Jason checked the clock. Checked his phone. Pacing now. Then Ellie walked up, hands trembling just slightly, and said the words like a whispered bomb. I'm resigning. Effective immediately. Jason froze. Mouth open. Then he laughed. A single, brittle sound. You think you're clever, he hissed. You think this is some coordinated bull? Ellie didn't flinch. Didn't respond. Just took off her apron, folded it neatly, and walked out. Now it was just me. Jason. And 3 customers who clearly sensed something was off. I ran the floor solo. Drinks. Orders. Cleaning. While Jason stood at the count. Monday morning. Sun out. Sky clear. Streets buzzing. But Grindhouse. Dead. Lights on. Doors open. No smell of coffee. No music. No laughter. Jason was behind the counter, alone. Face pale. Hair a mess. Wearing a wrinkled t-shirt instead of his usual tight dress shirt. I know all this because Marco walked by on his way to our new shop. And took a picture. Sent it to the group. One line. Ghost town. Meanwhile, just 3 blocks away. Third Cup Cafe was alive. Our soft opening wasn't soft at all. Word had spread, fast. Not just from us. From customers who noticed we were gone. From baristas who'd switched and posted about it. From regulars who missed service that cared. By noon, the line was out the door. Ellie was pouring oat lattes like she was born for it. Lena was behind the register, smiling for the first time in weeks. Marco played vinyl jazz on an old speaker system we'd rigged up overnight. And me? I stood behind the counter. In an apron that actually fit. Pouring drinks. Clearing tables. Watching it unfold. Jason texted that afternoon. One message. No greeting. Just. You poached them. I can sue. I didn't reply. Then came a second. Mark is gonna crush you. That one. Made me smile. Because what Jason didn't know is that Mark had already called me. 3 days before launch, Mark called from some beach hotel with choppy signal and worse timing. He said, I heard a rumor. I said, then you heard right. He sighed. You really think you can pull it off? I said, I know I can. And I'll do it without treating people like trash. Then he was quiet. Long enough that I thought the call had dropped. But then he said, "If you make it 6 months, I'll sell you the old shop. Cheap." I didn't answer right away. Just smiled. Because I knew what that meant. Even Mark had seen it. The heart of Grindhouse wasn't the logo. Wasn't the machines. It was us. And now. We were gone. It was 2 weeks after we opened. Third Cup was booming. Lines every morning. Locals dropping off flowers. Customers asking if they could rent the place for book clubs, art shows, even open mics. We were still catching up. Still scrubbing floors ourselves. Still ending every night tired, sore, smiling. But it was ours. Every grind, every pour, every cent in the tip jar, it meant something. We weren't just a cafe. We were a middle finger to every toxic workplace that thought people were disposable. That's when Jason showed up. Middle of the afternoon. No warning. No drink order. Just walked through the doors like he still had power. We all saw him at once. Silence fell. Marco looked up from the espresso machine. Ellie froze mid-pour. Lena's eyes went hard. He looked around like he was inspecting a crime scene. Then he walked up to the counter. And stared straight at me. "You stole my staff." I wiped the counter slowly. "You fired your staff." "I just gave them a better home." He leaned in, voice low. "You know I can still ruin you, right?" I looked at him. Truly looked. And what I saw wasn't scary. It was small. He wasn't the monster anymore. He was the echo of one. I leaned in too, matched his tone. "You already tried. You failed. Now order something, or leave." He stood there a moment. Still. Quiet. Then he stepped back. Looked around the shop one last time. At the full tables. The smiling faces. The tips overflowing. And for a second, just a second, I saw regret flash behind his eyes. Not because he lost. But because he realized. He never built anything real to begin with. He turned. Walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. The door closed behind him. And Ellie, without missing a beat, shouted from across the room. "Someone make sure he didn't steal a pastry on the way out." We laughed. Loud. Free. And I knew, right then. Revenge wasn't the fire.